All right. Good morning, everyone. Shall we start the class, please? Shall we start the class? That's okay. Um, if you look at the board, you can see that we have advertised today's discussion, today's lesson. It is titled Understanding Prepositions. Understanding Prepositions. Um, it is not possible. Excuse me, class. You were not so noisy while the other man was here. Why do you hate me so much? Sure. All right. Shall we go on now? Now, this is what I was saying. I have given us a few examples of what we refer to as prepositions. It is not possible to give all the examples on the board. With what we have here, you already recognize them because they are words you make use of frequently in English language. They are referred to as prepositions. They are pronounced preposition, not preposition. Prepositions, not prepositions, prepositions. So we start from that point. And then we talk about what a preposition is. We've had a definition. We are told it can be a word or a group of words. So that's why we talk about a simple preposition and a complex or compound preposition. An example here is according to. It's a compound or complex preposition. There are so many others like that. The preposition that comprises more than one word, usually forming a phrase, what is referred to as a prepositional phrase, is called a complex preposition. Good. So it is either a simple preposition, like many of what we have here, or a complex one that contains two words or more. Good. Now, what is a preposition? It can be a word or a group of words. We are told that a preposition is used before other parts of speech, before a noun, before a pronoun, or before a noun phrase. And that is what it does. It is used to show direction. It is also used to talk about time. And it is used to talk about place or location, or to talk about special relationship. Special means having to do with space. Special relationship. So if I put this here, I'm trying to show the space relationship or special relationship between this box or chest and the marker. So I'll use the preposition on. On. Good. And if I put it this way, it will be below or under. These are examples of a special relationship. Then a preposition is also used to introduce objects in sentences. There are so many other functions that prepositions perform that we cannot incorporate in the definition. For instance, we are going to talk about idioms. Many prepositions are highly idiomatic. So we are going to take a few examples of prepositions functioning as idioms as we go on with our lesson. And then we are also going to talk about how prepositions interact with adverbs. And apart from that, how prepositions interact with objects. We've talked about an object here. So we're going to talk about the case of an object when it is used with a preposition or when a preposition comes before it. For instance, when we talk about the use of objects in English language, we talk about nouns that are object and nouns that are subject. So we talk about the nominative case of nouns and the objective case of nouns. So we're going to take a look at all of this as we go on. But for now, let us take a look at some of our initial examples. Now shall we pay attention? We have some of our first few examples here. Let's take a look at sentence 1 here, which says, Mr. Chapman poured, please, it's P-O-U-R-E-D, poured, P-O-U-R-E-D, poured. It says, Mr. Chapman poured the fuel into, and we're talking about direction. Into indicates movement, you understand? From one spot to another. That is what we mean by directional movement. So it's a preposition talking about a movement by fuel, so the tank. And so it relates two nouns here, fuel and tank, talking about the movement of one into the other. So it indicates direction. Then in sentence 2, we have the water was in the tank until it became stale. In this example, the preposition in is talking about location. When we talk about location, we mean resting somewhere. Compare in with into. Into shows movement, but in means resting. It is not, it's already there. That is location, talking about location. And then we have until. Until it became. This is indicating time. It actually forms an adverbial clause of time when we underline until it became stale. So it answers the question, how long was the water in the tank? It was until it became stale. So until indicates time. We use it to talk about time relationship. And then in number 3, we have Mrs. Gilbert gathered the tablewares after dinner. Again, when did she gather the tablewares? After dinner. Good. The preposition after joins the noun dinner to tell us about the time. The time she gathered the tablewares. In this example, unlike this, the time expression is also adverbial. But while the first one, until it became stale, is an adverbial clause, this one is an adverbial phrase. Can you notice the difference between them? What's the difference? Can one tell us why this is a clause and this is a phrase? You can raise up your hand and shout. Tell us. What's the verb? Became. There is a finite verb. There is a finite verb here, which makes it a clause. There is none, no verb at all here, which makes it a phrase. But they are both adverbials of time. One, the adverbial clause of time. The other one, the adverbial phrase of time. Good. Number 4 says, the woman argued that it was beneath her. Beneath. It was beneath her. Beneath has the same meaning as under or below. But it is an idiom here. It is not used to talk about special relationship. Special means relationship of space. The woman is not talking about the space between her and her maidservant. So beneath is an idiom. She means it's not something I can do. It is lowering myself down, my reputation, my dignity, my worth as a woman. To take issues with my maidservant is bringing myself low. So that is the meaning. The meaning is an idiomatic one. Are we making sense here? Good. And then there is a 5th sentence. It says, the couple stood below. Good. In this example 5, we have a preposition which is properly talking about special relationship. Below here we have the same ordinary meaning, the same literal meaning as beneath. But it is used here literally to mean under something. They were standing, or rather they stood below a tree, and they were chatting away their time. Are these points of made understood? Good. Now, let us move on. These are examples, our initial examples of how prepositions behave. Now, let us talk about prepositions. Prepositions and adverbs. Prepositions and adverbs. Now let's take a look at sentence says, if you have a sentence which reads, tail, number 2, the water was stale, sour. Sour. Stale water is no longer fit for drinking. We can't see your writing. It's obvious. I knew you couldn't see it. That was why I didn't bother so much to write it better. But I'm going to tell you what I've written, so I'll read each of the sentences so you can write better. From which number do you not see clearly? All right. Let us take 1, 2, 3, 4. This is Mr. Chapman. Chapman. Mr. Chapman poured, Poured, poured the fuel into the tank, Tank, tank. The water was in the tank until it became stale. Stale is Stale. Mrs. Gilbert, Gilbert, please copy very well. The G is a capital G because it's a proper noun. Gathered the table, wares, W-A-R-E-S, wares, after dinner, for the woman argued, A-R-G-U-E-D, argued, that it was beneath, B-E-N-E-A-T-H, beneath her pride, P-R-I-D-E, her pride, to take up issues with her maid servant, her maid servant. The couple stood, C-O-U-P-L-E, couple, stood below the tree and charted away their time. Charted is C-H-A-T-T-E-D, charted their time. And then number 6 here says, okay, we have prepositions and adverbs. Then 6 says, the horses galloped outside the enclosure. Horses Horses, horses. Galloped, Galloped. The other one is outside, and then the enclosure. I'm going to read these ones later on. The other question says, I think they are saying basically the same thing. It's about not seeing the writing clearly. I'll start picking my letters one after the other so that you can see them better. All right, shall we pay attention, class? You see, the point that we want to make here is this. The same words that we see here can function as prepositions and adverbs. They are both prepositions and adverbs. So we need to know when they are used as prepositions and when they are used as adverbs. Now, as prepositions, they govern a noun. Look at the enclosure. That means a noun follows the preposition. Outside, it says, the horses galloped outside. Outside what? The enclosure. So that makes outside a preposition. It governs a noun, by which we mean a noun comes after it, sometimes a pronoun. Good. But when it is used without a noun coming immediately, then it's an adverb. For instance, in this example, the adverb is outside. The whole sentence says, the horses galloped outside as the door swung open. When did they gallop outside? As the door swung open. Now, the verb is galloped. If we ask again, galloped where? We will say outside. Are we following? Or galloped in which direction? We will say outside. Now it will depend on the context in which it is used. This can be an adverb of direction, modifying the verb galloped, or an adverb of place, modifying the verb galloped, indicating exactly where the horses galloped. So it is an adverb here, modifying the verb galloped. In number 7, we have the speech. Come near the sofa. Come near the sofa and sit down. Near what? The sofa. Now, it governs the noun, the sofa. So it is a preposition. Come near the sofa and sit down. Mrs. Johnson urged her grandchildren. But the next sentence says, they came near. This time, there is no noun coming after it. So it's an adverb. They came near when their granny called. The word near is an adverb modifying came. It's like saying came where? Came where, an adverb of place. Where did they come? They came near. So it modifies this verb. All right. The question is, how can we apply this to our jump questions? All right. Let's talk about how to apply it to our jump questions. Now, we've talked about, or have the examples of how prepositions function, and then the various roles they play in sentences. Good. For instance, prepositions that are used before nouns, and the ones that show direction, the ones that show time, and so on and so forth. Good. Now, I have also given you an example of a preposition helping to form a clause and also helping to form a phrase. How can this apply to the jam question? Good. Now, apart from all of these, the prepositions also help a sentence to make a meaning. Understanding prepositions enables you to understand the meaning of a sentence properly. And very often, jam questions expect you to choose an option that explains the meaning or best explains the meaning in a sentence. Now, understanding how the preposition is used, for instance, when it is used to talk about time, when it's used to talk about place, when it is an idiom, all of these will enable you to answer questions that involve prepositions correctly. For instance, if you didn't know that beneath, used in this way, is an idiom, at least you know the meaning of the idiom now. So next time, when you feel you can do something with someone, you can say, come on, it's beneath me. It's beneath me to be seen with someone like you along the road. Yes. You say it's beneath me. That means you're trying to say your reputation is so high that it's not dignified to be seen with someone you regard as an underdog. Something of that nature. So idioms help a lot to understand sentences. So that is one way that knowledge of prepositions can help you in the JAM examination. Let me give you this example before I explain the rest of these. If someone says, for instance, please let's pay attention. Now let's take a look at sentence 10 here, which says, in spite of all the efforts that went into preparing for Kate's nuptial outdooring, it didn't come off. Now this is another idiom. It has the verb come and the preposition of. What do you think we mean here? Yes. You didn't hear me. All right, listen carefully. Now, we're talking about sentence 10. It says, in spite of all the efforts that went into preparing for Kate's nuptial outdooring, nuptial, N-U-P-T-I-A-L, meaning marriage. Nuptial outdooring, outdoor activities involved in getting married. Nuptial outdooring, it didn't come off. Good. It wasn't successful. It was a failure. It didn't record the success expected. So it's an idiom. It is made from a preposition. What is the difference between underneath and beneath? The difference between them is in their spellings. Yes. Underneath means below. Beneath also means below or under. So they are synonyms. The difference is that they are spelled in different ways and pronounced in different ways. Please slow down. I can understand you. All right. I'll do that right away. I'm slowing down now. Now let's take a look at number 8. Sorry, slowing down is something I am learning seriously because, you know, different people have the way they speak. I may not be able to speak in exactly the way you want me, but I'll try to carry you along. Number 8 here says, the workman descended into, and here into governs the noun, the well. Descended into the well. And we have, he went into, immediately he heard the sound. This is an adverb. This is a preposition governing the noun. This adverb modifies the verb went, telling us where he went or the direction. Adverb of direction telling us the direction that the workman went. Jane came down with fever. Good. Now, in this case, with governs the noun fever. Good. Came here and down. This is not, the down used here is adverbial. It is modifying the verb came. Came down, also talking about direction. But we know that came down is an idiom here. It doesn't refer to something going down anywhere. It simply means she took ill. Jane took ill with fever. But good. But fever governs the noun, that is, with governs the noun fever. However, in the next example, she came down in a matter of seconds. She came down. Here is an adverb. We didn't repeat with. It's an adverb modifying came. All right. Do we have questions? Do we have questions on what we've done so far? Good. We are still going to have other examples. It says prepositions and the objective case of pronouns. Prepositions and the objective case of pronouns. Do you have any question? When to make use of in and on. All right. I guess you want us to talk about, because the frequent questions that I get about in and on. I should clean these ones. All right, please let us take a look at the sentences on the board. They are in response to the question someone here asked. It's a question about how to use in and on correctly as prepositions. Now let's talk about their simple meaning. On is the same as on top. You could say the other side of below. Are we following? Good. And then it is also used with a variety of other meanings. Some of them idiomatic. For instance, if we say, for instance, number 5 here says, Wole Soyinka is an authority on, but not authority in. Is an authority on comparative literature, idiom. It means, it doesn't mean he's on anything. It means he's an expert. He is a guru in that field. He's a literary magnet, so to say. Good. He has much knowledge on comparative literature. Good. The first one here says, the concert, C-O-N-C-E-R-T, the concert failed to start on schedule. It is this meaning of on that people often raise questions. Should we say in or on? We're talking about time. They both mean to be early. Good. But in has something to do with in the nick of time. It has that kind of meaning. If something happens in the nick of time, we arrived in the nick of time and we're able to board the train. We arrived just on time to be able to board before the train left. We are late, but not so late that we missed the train. If we had delayed a few minutes longer, we might have missed the train. But to arrive on time means you were there to relax before the event started. You arrived punctually. That's what it means to be at a place on time. But you arrived in time means you arrived early, but not so early, but you were not late. Good. But then when we speak informal English, it is informal English that we speak most of the times. It is WAEC and NECO and JAM that force us to speak formal English in the exam halls. Outside, we speak informal English. In informal English, no one takes notice of whether the difference between on and in are used accurately. People are free to say, we were there in time, we were there on time. It says, bands, B-A-N-D-S, bands at the wedding reception began to play on time. That means the band started punctually. They began to play punctually. You can trust Frank to arrive in time. That's the way he often arrives. He won't be too late, but he won't be too early. All the girls were seated in. Now, this meaning of in had been discussed before. It means location. Location. Good. Now, in, when it is used for location, becomes the synonym of on when we talk about on top. When we say the ruler is on the table, that's the location of the ruler. Or we say the water is in the gallon, that's the location of the gallon. Are we following? So those are the differences between on and in. Do we still have more questions? Yes. All right. When do we use on the bus and in the bus? And when do we use laying on the bed and laying in the bed? All right, let's talk about this and then we'll go to the next question. Let me take the last one. There is never a time when we use laying on the bed or laying in the bed, because the verb you've used there is incorrect. Lay. I recall talking about this here not long ago. Am I right? There was a day we discussed irregular verbs when I laid emphasis on the difference between lie, L-I-E, meaning to tell untruth. Tell untruth, something that is not true. And then lie, meaning to be prostrate, be in the position of one who is resting or sleeping. And then we now talked about lay, which is a verb, but is also the past tense of one of the lies. Good. Now, lay is the past tense of the second lie, meaning to be prostrate, to be in the position when you are resting in bed or sleeping. Lie, lay. But another verb, lay, means to put something somewhere. I try to distinguish by saying that a person can lie down to sleep. You can talk about people lying down. But when it comes to one person, putting another person in that position, you use lay. They laid the corpse in the mortuary, the corpse of the dead man. They laid it. You understand? And a woman uses it to talk about putting her baby in the cot to sleep. She laid the baby in the cot. The past tense and past participle is L-A-I-D. Laid. Good. Whereas the other lie has a past tense, lay and lain. Past tense is lay, past participle lain. This one is laid, laid. Laid, laid. While this one is lied, lied. She lied to him, he lied to her. You understand that? Good. And the present participle, that is the ing form, is the same for the first two, lying. For the next one, laying. Laying. The hens were laying some eggs, and so we couldn't drive them away from the coop. In and into. Yes, we've talked about the difference. We said into denotes movement. It talks about movement from a point to another. While in talks about a resting position, to be in rest. That's why we say it's about location. Please, I'm running off. All right, let me respond to the rest of the questions. The other one is, I thought there was a day we also talked about travel movements. When you use on, when you're talking about vehicles, what you should not use is enter. Don't say enter a bus, enter a taxi, enter a train. Don't use enter, but use board, use get on board. Then use on and in. In a bus, on a bus are equally correct. Then use by. They came by bus, came by taxi. Good. Then use on for vehicles that can be mounted. Bicycles, horses, mules. Riding on a bicycle, on a motorcycle, on a horse. On what else? And so on and so forth. Sorry, I'm coming. Let me address these ones first. It says, is this correct? In spite of all the effort, he was still eliminated. All right, the first correction I need to make here is that if you say in spite of all is a quantifier and it means more than one. So it should be all the efforts, not all the efforts. In spite of all the efforts, he was still eliminated. That is correct. Once we make efforts. In spite of all his efforts, he was still eliminated. Whether you say his effort or all the efforts, you are saying the same thing. It is correct. So repeat your explanation about in or on. use in terms of time. My explanation was that both in and on have to do with arriving at an event early. But on means punctually. When you are punctual to an event, you are there well before the celebrants. You help to sweep the hall. So you are punctual. But if you are in time, you are not late, but you're not so early. It says, please, we at the back cannot see your writing. I knew that already. That's why I've been reading everything. It will be difficult for any living person to write something here that those at the back can see. What is the difference between in bed and on in bed? The difference is that on bed is incorrect and in bed is correct. He's lying in bed, not on bed. She was in bed when we visited. When each time you talk about bed, talking about one asleep, use in. But if someone is sitting down, say he sat on the bed. But once it's about sleeping, use in. When do we use few, a few, a little, some, many? Please, let's pay attention. It will form an entire discussion on its own. We refer to that topic as quantifiers. There's a teacher waiting for us. I may not be able to attend to all these questions, but I'll take them home and bring them back in our next class. Few, a few, little, a little. Few and a few are used with the plural forms of countable nouns. Then little and a little are used with uncountable nouns. Few and a few, little and a little, you have the attitude issue. If the attitude of the speaker towards the quantity available is positive, the person uses a few or a little. I said if the attitude of the speaker towards the quantity available is positive, the speaker uses a few or a little. I have a few biscuits in that carton. Why don't you help yourself? I am positive. I'm making an offer to you. Hell, I have few biscuits left. Please, this is for my baby. You don't want to give. Your attitude towards the quantity is a negative one. Good. Put a little sugar in that cup to sweeten the tea. The attitude is positive, a little sugar. Sugar is uncountable. Good. We have little sugar to spare, so we cannot lend. The attitude is negative. All right, we will stop here. Thank you very much. You're welcome.